In studio now. Thanks very much, Chriselda. So there were a few witnesses today. The first one obviously was Adriaan Basson, news editor of News 24, and that was a very speedy testimony, but just give us the salient points.
Well, very speedy indeed, but basically corroborating what we thought was going to happen initially, where he basically testified about the threats that he and a colleague were experiencing when they started investigating the links between Bosasa and correctional services more than 10 years ago. His colleague being Karin Duplessis. He gave a detailed account about the telephone calls that he received, people telling him not to investigate Bosasa, some saying that he was jeopardizing their jobs at Bosasa, and that it was actually dangerous for him to continue writing negative stories about the company. He says he felt like his life was threatened. He recalled at some point, as you indicated in your intro there, that the late former journalist Benedicta Dube, after he had done his own investigations to find who had tried to call him, had actually had an entire detail about who his friends were, what his ID number was, what his address was, and who his family members were. So he believes that there might have been intelligence involved in that, because he's asking himself a question as to how would people get access to such sensitive information about his person. So I think that really gives insight into, I guess, what those journalists had gone through so many years ago, in how they were investigating Bosasa and correctional services. It gives insight into the threats and the death threats. You recall in the testimony he also indicated that he was told he should not speak of the conversation, of one of the conversations, or else he will be killed.
And it aligns very interestingly well with what Agrizi was saying. That's around right. Seeing intelligence documents being held by Dube.
Precisely that, and I think it's all starting to come together now, because you must recall that the Commission did indicate that there were going to be 2 Commission investigators that were going to take the stand. They did. And now more than ever, you must recall when Agrizi had initially made those remarks, or in that testimony of his, where he detailed this meeting with Dube in a Pretoria hotel and spoke about confidential SABC documents that she had in her possession, basically giving a report on where the investigation into Bosasa was. I remember at the time I texted Dube and she responded to me, and she indicated that basically she brushed Agrizi off and said that he was nothing but an angry man. This afternoon as well, I did text her. She indicated that she was in a meeting and that she would respond. At the time she said she would respond to the allegations that Agrizi was making via her lawyers, but that did not happen. Now she has more questions or more answers to give, because these investigators are essentially saying they met with Agrizi before he testified in this particular commission, and they tried to corroborate everything, including the photographs that he took. The photographs where you could see in one of them the pattern of the carpet at the Pretoria hotel where this meeting allegedly took place. And these investigators are essentially saying they went to the hotel, they basically took the photographs and tried to align them with the pattern of the carpet, and it did fit. Also, the hotel management had also basically given the green light to the fact that Dube was booked in at that particular hotel. And now it asks questions about how exactly did Dube get into her possession confidential documentation of SABC / the Hawks about the investigation into Bosasa. So with that, investigators basically saying they managed to corroborate basically critical parts of the testimony that Agrizi managed to give.
Those questions that you say are now being posed, well, we can only surmise as to how she did that for now. And then, of course, there was a chap there, I don't know what his surname was, Lawrence, who indicated that he was the individual that would take cash to Bosasa's offices, that cash presumably being the cash that they used to make sure that they kept everyone in line. Tell us about that.
Once again, really shocking, Nompo, because you must recall when evidence was given or testimony was given about, you remember the footage that really raised eyebrows of cash that was being handled in the vault of Gavin Watson. You would remember how all of that all tied in, because what is essentially being said now is that a former employee of one of the companies that was doing business with Bosasa, or had a relationship with Bosasa, spoke about how he had basically taken hundreds of thousands of rand. The pictures that we saw, the videos that were shown at the commission, are of 100 rand notes, bundles of them, being taken to Bosasa head offices. And you can see one of what he referred to as an official from Bosasa who he continuously gave money to. And essentially what he is saying, when he was asked what does he believe that money was for, clearly giving an indication that it ties between the testimony that was previously given of huge chunks of money that were made available for bribes.
Now, where was he from, this guy? I mean, where's he delivering the money from? Who's his boss? What's his company?
From one of the companies that was doing business with Bosasa. The company itself was providing food supplies to Bosasa, and when he was asked about the food supplies themselves, obviously you must recall, Bosasa then had this relationship with correctional services where there were issues of catering that they were supplying. So that's where the link certainly seems to come in. But I think what startled me a bit about the testimony was that he could not give a name of the man who appeared, who he continuously met. And I think Deputy Chief Justice Zondo even asked him, whether he had at any point, if you meet with someone all the time, you would strike up some conversation about the money that you're bringing to Bosasa head offices. He said that he did not know, or he did not strike up that conversation with the man he'd continuously been meeting with. So I think the links are certainly starting to come together about chunks of money that were taken to Bosasa head offices to be used for what Angelo Agrizi had already said in his testimony was for huge bribes.
It sounds like a movie where people have relationships but they don't know each other's names. And then the last thing that's come up in the last hour or so, apparently on social networks, something has been revealed about Gwede Mantashe's property, showing footage of all that various equipment being installed at his property. Remember, he had said a few days ago that he was more than willing to take the media to his homes to show them that,
And he did indicate that on his Twitter account. That is yet to happen. But the last witness as well had also corroborated basically what Angelo Agrizi's statement was about, where he indicated that Bosasa had paid for security upgrades at the homes of certain ministers. So one of the investigators, the commission investigators, had also given, basically after all of this had come to light, he had then gone to the special projects, if I may, director at Bosasa, who was dealing with these properties where these security upgrades were being done. And he said that he was taken to 4 properties, and this would include the properties of Nomvula Mokanyana, as he said, of Tabang Makwetla, of Vincent Smith, the ANC MP, and basically corroborating, you could see where all this testimony and evidence is going, Nompo, in that these men who were tasked by the commission to go and investigate some of the allegations that had been made in this commission are coming back to corroborate what those Bosasa officials who were responsible for the special project of installing these security cameras or security gadgets, if I may, at the homes of these ministers, him essentially saying that all of that is verified.
All right, Chriselda, thank you very much for that update. As always, Chriselda Lewis, my colleague, giving us an update on the state capture inquiry, which has adjourned for today. Wits University, SRC.